We have lowered God's regulation and God's ideal of marriage. Look with me at 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And this is a fascinating passage. It comes from the Apostle Paul, who was a single man, and he says to the church at Corinth, he says, "Sometimes I wish everyone were single like me, a simpler life in many ways." Yeah, right, Paul. But celibacy is not for everyone any more than marriage is. God gives the gift of the single life to some, the gift of the married life to others. And so we have to understand that marriage isn't for everybody. God gives the gift of marriage to some, and to others He gives the gift of singleness. How do you know if you have the gift of singleness? Well, I think if there's any dream, if there's any inkling of a desire to one day be married, you don't have the gift of singleness, honey. Keep looking, keep looking. People who have the gift of singleness are perfectly content to spend the rest of their lives without getting married. Now, whether you're married or single, I want you to look at this next verse in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. This verse is for everybody. And it says, marriage should be honored by who? Everyone. Here's why marriage matters. Here's why God created marriage. First of all, God created marriage for the unification of men and women. 1 Corinthians 11:11, but remember that in God's plan, men and women need each other. Now that's a pretty radical statement for 2019, I know. And so God designed men and women to need each other. In Mark's gospel, Jesus said, he reiterates everything that God has shown us in the Old Testament. He said, God's plan has been from the beginning of creation, when He made us male and female. He says, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united as one body. Now, since they are no longer two, but one, no one should separate them, for God has joined them together. Second, God created marriage for the multiplication of the human race. Now, you might like this point a little better. It's how we all got here. You're here because a man and a woman got together and made you. And for thousands of years, billions of people have entered the human race because of marriage. This was God's plan. In the very beginning, in Genesis 1, so God created people in His own image. He patterned them after Himself, creating both male and female with His image. Then God blessed them and commanded them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. Malachi 2:15, God, not you, made marriage. His Spirit, watch this, His Spirit inhabits even the smallest details of marriage. And what does He want from marriage? Godly children from your union. So guard the spirit of your marriage within you. Now this is not an indictment against childless marriages. I want you to understand that. There are some couples who would love to have children, but for various reasons just can't. If you're married and you can't have children, listen, God's not disappointed in you. That's not what this verse is saying. It's simply saying that we are all here because two people got together. Third, God created marriage for the protection of children. Proverbs 14:26, those who would obey and respect the Lord have a secure fortress. Their children have a place of refuge and security. Fourth, God created marriage. This is going to be rough, but you know it's the truth. God created marriage for the perfection of our character. When you were born, not only were you helpless, you were self-centered. A baby is the most self-centered little thing on this planet. I mean, they just all, I'm hungry, I'm hot, I'm cold, I pooped. I mean, it just goes on and on. But the goal of life that God has for us is to grow from this self-centered little baby into a caring, serving, sacrificing unselfish adult. Now, do you know some adults who act like babies? Don't look at them. Don't look at them. Marriage is the best thing to help us to understand what living life is all. It helps our character. It makes us better people. Oh, I'm such a better man because of Mary, and I hope she's a better woman because she married me. Proverbs 18:1. People who do not get along with others are interested only in themselves. Marriage is that laboratory of learning. It teaches us how to get along, how to love, how to be unselfish. You see, once you get married, you stop thinking about me and you start thinking we. You know, most people think that marriage is about happiness, that marriage ought to make you happy. You know what God's Word says? Marriage makes you holy. Marriage ought to make you holy. Romans 12, verses 9 and 10 tells us to love sincerely, to hold on to what is good, be devoted to each other, excel in showing respect for each other. Now, I know that sometimes husbands and wives are in a competition. Well, here's a competition for you this week. See who can excel in showing respect for the other. Number 5, God created marriage for the construction of society. Marriage is the building block of every community. It's the building block of this church. It's the building block of our state, of our nation. History has shown that when marriages are strong, nations are strong. When marriages are weak, nations are weak. Proverbs 14:34, righteousness makes a nation great. Sin is a disgrace to any nation. And we have seen what has happened. Our culture has devalued the institution of marriage and made individualism its idol. He created marriage for the reflection of our union with Jesus Christ. Look at this well-known passage in Ephesians 5. Husbands, go all out in your love for your wives. And all the women said, oh, the amens are growing by the number. Husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Christ's love makes the church whole. His words evoke her beauty. Everything he does and says is designed to bring the best out of her, dressing her in dazzling white silk, radiant with holiness. And that is how husbands ought to love their wives. This is why a man leaves father and mother and cherishes his wife. No longer two, they become one flesh. This is a huge mystery. And I don't pretend to understand it all. What is clearest to me is the way Christ treats the church. And this provides a good picture of how each husband is to treat his wife and how each wife is to honor her husband.